Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Run the Nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you on this Friday evening. Man, we got a lot of stories today, so we got a lot of stuff to go through. We're going to be talking a lot about the New Zealand shooting, so buckle up. Very disastrous stories. So it includes Donald Trump's response to it, the details of what happened. We've got an Australian lawmaker saying some of the most horrendous things. Are we sure he's not an American politician? We'll get to the details on what he said. Then we've got AOC going after the NRA over this. And then finally we'll go to a different topic. We'll talk about one, Republicans' criticism of the Green New Deal, which is both sad and hilarious. So get a fun, at least one fun segment to leave us off for the weekend. But we do have a lot of important things as well. So, oh boy. Okay. Anyway, before we get into those, I want to thank some patrons, thank some members for supporting the show. Let's give a shout out to Judith Ferraris, Jules Frazier, one of the original patrons, actually. Thank you, Jules. Julian Davis, Julio, Justin Patton, Justin Pomeroy, Kay Jordan, Cagnad, and Karen L. Silt, I think. So thank you to all of those people that I've mentioned. You guys support the show. The show cannot run without you, so thank you. Patreon.com/TYTNation. Also, if you want to be a member through YouTube, you can do that. Channel members, we have BrownianProductions.com is a new member, so thank you. Okay. So we have that. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already as well. And then we will dive into the stories. Okay. So there was a mass shooting last night. It was actually not in the United States, which is a little bit of a shocker. But more shocking is that it was in the country of New Zealand. Now, New Zealand, of course, is near Australia, in case you guys didn't know. Now, there's what happened was a gunman, who I will not be identifying by name, because I don't think that he needs the attention. Certainly, he is looking for attention. He certainly wants people to copy him. And I'll get into the details, of course, later on of what the motivations were. But he basically, two different mosques, was involved in murdering 49 people and injuring at least 50 in two different mosques. So now New Zealand, of course, hasn't seen a terror attack like this for a very, very long time. I believe the last mass shooting there was back in 1985. And it's being reported that the shooter was a white Australian-born male who apparently had some white supremacist tendencies. Now, there was a weird rambling manifesto that was released. And in it, of course, he said a bunch of things. Some of the stuff might actually have been trolling. Some of the stuff was very real. Talked about, white genocide a lot. Talked about how, the Muslims are a big problem. Also said some ridiculous things like, oh, go subscribe to PewDiePie, and, I love Candace Owens and all that stuff. So I don't know what's, I don't know really what's real in that part, but I do know that there were some definite things that he wanted to stir up a lot of division, a lot of strife, get people to fight each other in America, and especially start maybe something like a race war. So, I mean, it's your standard right-wing, super right-wing, reactionary, just disgusting person. Not saying that all right, people who are on the right side of the spectrum are like that, but I'm saying this guy is extreme, right? So now, he actually did write in this manifesto that with enough pressure, the left wing with the United States after the shooting, because he wanted to start a conversation, not really a conversation, but start an argument on gun control, And he did that by explaining the guns that he used and the fact that, oh, I could have used something else, but I decided to use a gun in this one. Here's what I used. Let's have a conversation now that I've done this to talk about gun control. And I hope you leftists, will try to get rid of the Second Amendment. In fact, they said the attempted abolishment of rights by the left will result in a dramatic polarization of the people in the United States and eventually a fracturing of the U.S. along cultural, and he emphasized racial lines. So, look, where have we heard this kind of rhetoric before? Oh, that we're going to do the race war, right? You're going to take their freedoms and liberties, and then we're going to cause racial divisions and, and break the United States apart, basically. I can see where where I've heard this kind of rhetoric before, but can you think of a person or an organization that continues to lie about, the left and how we think about the Second Amendment? I don't know about you, but look, I don't know a lot of liberals who want to abolish the Second Amendment, right? I know those who would like to put some limits on things, the kinds of guns that you might be able to purchase or the kinds of accessories, etc. Banning all guns, no, I don't see a lot of people talking about that. But it's very clear this man was very, very deranged, wanted a race war, and wanted to stir up a lot of trouble, and wanted to have a lot of copycat mass shootings, right? And according to his own words, he thought that Donald Trump was the leader who will promote the white race. And let me give you a quote. He said he saw Donald Trump as a, quote, symbol of renewed white identity and common purpose, while also noting that as far as leadership and policy making, no, absolutely not terrible. Well, I mean, at least he's right about one thing. Another, as I mentioned before, hero was, Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens. I'm not sure about the Candace Owens thing. Let's be honest. I think he might have been trolling when he said this. But he said, because he said a lot of really strange things like, oh, I trained on Fortnite and Spyro the Dragon also, radicalized me or something weird like that. So I don't know what's trolling, I don't know what's not, but the whole manifesto was incredibly odd and incredibly strange. And so, but what he said about Owens was each time she spoke, I was stunned by her insights, and her own views helped push me further and further into the belief of violence over meekness. Again, I don't know if that's true. It would be very, very strange to see someone so hung up on white identity to be listening to someone like Candace Owens. But then again, Candace Owens has basically she's basically been caught saying a lot of things, a lot of terrible things about Muslims, a lot of things about, we need to get the Western birth rate up so that the Muslims don't take over France. So there's some strange stuff, right? And Owens, for her part, of course, basically responded by tweeting, LOL, with a crying face emoji, when Twitter users pointed out that she had been mentioned in his manifesto. And she had some other responses that basically, to me, did not seem adequate. She apparently didn't really call it out, as far as I know. And I could be wrong. Maybe she did a couple of tweets and I didn't see them. I don't know. But if she hasn't already, I would probably issue a full condemnation of this guy. And we'll see if that happens. Now, the White House, of course, did weigh in as well, along with Donald Trump. So let me get to the Trump quote first here. He says, my warmest sympathy and best wishes goes out to the people of New Zealand after the horrible massacre in the mosques. 49 innocent people have so senselessly died, with many more seriously injured. The U.S. stands by New Zealand for anything we can do. God bless all. Best wishes. We'll get to that statement in a bit, because some social media users had a little bit of an issue with that. It's a different segment. Now, in a separate statement, the White House condemned the shootings, but actually did not mention that it was a mosque or that the victims were Muslim. They said the United States strongly condemns the attack in Christchurch, Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families, according to a statement from Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She said, "We stand in solidarity with the people of New Zealand and their government against this vicious act of hate." We also have a response from John Bolton. John Bolton said, "The U.S. is very concerned. It's following the events of New Zealand very closely. Quote, we're obviously greatly disturbed on what seems to be a terror attack," which it absolutely was. "This hate crime in New Zealand, we've been in touch with our embassy overnight. We're still getting details, but the State Department and others are following up on it," he said in a statement Friday morning. Ivanka Trump also weighed in. Let's see. She said 49 innocent people were slaughtered in their place of worship during the terrorist attack on Christian mosques. "We join in New Zealand and Muslim communities around the world in condemnation of this evil as we pray for the families of each victim and grieve together." So there's these statements, right? That they seem to have ignored something, right? Now, actually, Ivanka's statement is probably the best out of all of them. But again, all of them ignores the fact that this that this shooting was rooted in white supremacy, that this attack, right? Not one statement identified right-wing terrorism. That is hard to say. So now wait a minute. So now I thought the only way to beat terror is to call it what it is. I mean, you got to call it by name, right? Just say it. It's white right-wing terrorism. That's what it is. I mean, again, there's proof. There's a manifesto. There's everything about how it was against the Muslims. So call it what it is, unless you don't want to for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe you can explain why. But look, I don't think they'll ever take responsibility for inspiring this attack. And I do hold their rhetoric accountable. And the reason I say this, you look at what they're saying, the stuff that they're saying, right? I mean, you could go on and watch Tucker Carlson, right? Tucker Carlson's got the biggest show in America, right? Most watched. And you'll hear him talking about how Muslims are incompatible with Western civilization. Well, guess what? The world's listening whenever you say that. Or every time a policymaker tries to push a ban on Muslims because of how dangerous they are. You know, the world sees that, right? And every time this administration hedges on calling out white supremacy or refers to neo-Nazis as very fine people, that very same hatred, that becomes normalized. And it becomes a bigger part of who we are. And look, I don't know, but I don't want to live in that kind of country. I don't want to live in a place where that's normal. I don't want Nazis and fascists to feel emboldened. I don't want to do that. I don't want them to divide us. And I don't want people like this guy to win. And so my heart goes out to the people, the families of the victims in New Zealand. And, you know, it's, yeah. Sorry, I don't know. I don't really know what to say in those kind of situations. All right. Let's move on. Let's head out to Trump. Let's see. President Donald Trump is getting blasted on social media for his response to the shooting in New Zealand that led to the death of 49 people. Now, the president first tweeted out a link, I should say, to Breitbart shortly after the mass shootings. And then hours later, on Twitter, offered his, quote, warmest sympathy and best wishes to some of these victims. Now, the president first tweeted this. He said, My warmest sympathy and best wishes goes out to the people of New Zealand after the horrible massacre in the mosques. 49 innocent people have so senselessly died, with so many more seriously injured. The U.S. stands by New Zealand for anything we can do. God bless all. Best wishes, guys. Yay. What is this, a birthday party? Is this like a, or like a wedding? Or what's going on here? You don't say best wishes to people that are the victims of a mass shooting. But look, hey, you know what? We can ignore that, right? Because Trump's a moron. Fair enough. This is the same guy who, after Newtown, had to write in his notes, please listen. Okay, listen as in a reminder to, oh, turns out you have to listen to the victims. Right. No, the real problem with this is that I have, is that it didn't include certain things. Right? Now, the shooter had written an 80-page rambling manifesto, right, that touted Donald Trump and other right-wing figures, weirdly Candace Owens, I'm not sure why, Ben Shapiro, and you know, said that Trump was a, quote, symbol of renewed white identity and common purpose. Now, this, look, it also, this thing did not mention the guy had far-right views, and also it didn't mention how this guy hated Muslims, or that he was a terrorist, right? And not only that, but he didn't rebuke that this guy was essentially a fan. No. None of that. That did not happen. So, of course, social media users, they called him out for it. And he said, we'll start with Sean King, who said simply, you inspired this man. Rent-Free Hat says, that's nice, but you reacted to this terrorist attack by tweeting a link to Breitbart. It's like linking Arby's and then denouncing meat. Not Arby's. But Breitbart is basically an anti-Muslim publication. And they talk about white genocide all the time, which again is something that in the manifesto this shooter had talked about. There's more. Love Life says, best wishes is not the appropriate word to use. Celia notes that this is a massacre, not a wedding. I'm actually not going to talk about make any red wedding jokes today because it's not the time. Emma Evans says, they were murdered in a terrorist attack by white nationalists who were huge fans of yours. Very inspired. Warmest sympathy. The message sent to his white nationalist supporter base, oh, he had to say that, but you know, they got the message, so do we. Now that's interesting because, again, a lot of white supremacists, I guess, talk in code. With just to like, they hide everything in the subtext, right? And so it's pretty insidious. So by not actually doing a strong denouncement, they're like, oh, good. That means Donald Trump is still on our side. Emma Evans says, effing PewDiePie made a more sincere sounding tweet than you. So let me address that, right? So now during the live stream of the shooting, which was immediately taken down, and it should be, you should not view that, because for one, he wants you to watch that. And then he wants Muslims, of course, across the world to watch that and to get very, very angry and to sow more division. So not a good thing to watch that video, but during that, he told people to subscribe to PewDiePie. Why? I don't know why. I don't know why. And of course, afterwards, PewDiePie, Felix, put out this huge thing saying, hey, look, I 100% denounce this guy. I'm actually sickened by him saying my name. I've got nothing to do with this. Okay, look, that's pretty good. That's what you're supposed to do, right? And I think it's probably because this guy's trying to troll, because he put out a lot of trolling statements during the manifesto because it was really weird and very rambling, right? So enough about PewDiePie. Let's go to Bishop Talbert Swan, who said, nobody wants your insincere sympathy or best wishes. Sentiments that you have expressed are behind these senseless murders. You are complicit in echoing this vitriolic hatred across the globe and emboldening those who would act upon it. Trump, you have blood on your hands. Damn. Dr. Mag says, warmest sympathy and best wishes. What's wrong with this man? Are you wishing a birthday? Rogue White House senior advisor says, you lit this fire. Jonathan Sabin says, best wishes. It's not an effing birthday card. Leslie Abravanel says, best wishes. You tweeted a link to an anti-Muslim website, and now you're offering best wishes. An anti-immigrant white supremacist shot 49 innocent people because he hates the religion. And he hates all the people who follow that religion. I wonder where he got his motivation from. You're disgraced and demented. Resign. And Trifecta said, yesterday you said your fans would resort to violence. That got quick results. Now that's such a good point, because I want to give you a quote here that President Trump has said, which, by the way, has now been dropped from that Breitbart interview, as if it never happened, right? But I've got the quote here. He says, I can tell you I have the support of the police, the support of the military, the support of the bikers for Trump. I have the tough people, but they don't play it tough until they go to a certain point. And then it would be bad, very bad. Really? Really? Oh, but no, you don't understand, Jeff. We're not supposed to interpret that as violent. You're just reading into things. Oh, that's what that is. And finally, Dean Obadala says, how do people get radicalized to kill Muslims? Here's one way. And he quotes Trump. If you have people coming out of mosques with hatred and death in their eyes and on their minds, we're going to have to do something. We have a problem in this country. It's called Muslims. I think that is very, very clear where he stands on that. And finally, Decca says, radical right-wing terrorism. Say it. You are the inspiration, after all. So, social media obviously doing a pretty good job reminding the president of a lot of the stuff that he seems to conveniently forget that he says about Muslims, and how his rhetoric, along with a lot of the rhetoric from the right wing, the ultra-right, the white nationalists, echoes a lot of what this man said in his manifesto and how he really felt. And so, yeah, there is an inspiration. And unfortunately, we've got a big problem with right-wing terrorism, not just in this country, but apparently all over the world. And we need to do something about it. Okay. Moving on. A right-wing Australian senator is now blaming the 49 victims of the Christchurch shootings in New Zealand for being shot. Now, on Friday, Queensland Senator Fraser Anning said that the real cause of bloodshed was not the shooter or not white supremacy. No, it was Muslims. But wait a minute. The Muslims here are actually the victims. They were the ones that were literally shot when they were in their mosque. That's weird. But let me give you his quote here. He said, I am utterly opposed to any form of violence within our community, and I totally condemn the actions of the gunman. Okay, good so far, right? Now, here comes the but. However, whilst this kind of violent vigilantism can never be justified, what it highlights is the growing fear within our community, both in Australia and New Zealand, of the increasing Muslim presence. So, oh man, I don't like the vigilantism, but man, people are scared of the Muslims, so, I mean, what are you going to do? Oh, I know what to do. Let's get rid of the Muslims. He'll get to that. Now, he said, quote, the real cause of bloodshed on New Zealand streets today is the immigration program, which allowed Muslim fanatics to migrate to New Zealand in the first place. So, you understand that? So this guy makes it seem that it was like, oh, it's the Muslims who invited this attack. I mean, just by trying to get into that country, to being in New Zealand, hey man, it's your fault. You scare people, and of course, if you scare people, well, they're gonna come shoot you. Well, that's what's gonna happen. He continues by saying, quote, Muslims may have been the victims today, but usually they are the perpetrators. What are we going to do with the violent Muslims? But wait, Muslims just didn't kill 49 Muslims. That was a white right-winger. That was a white supremacist that did that. You know, and of course, we're talking worldwide here, right? Or actually, not worldwide. We're talking United States, right? Because this is where he'd been watching a lot of U.S. media, U.S.-based media, right? And, you know, people like Tucker Carlson, people like Candace Owens, and Ben Shapiro, and, of course, idolized Donald Trump, right? As far as a beacon for the white race, right? And so, in America, we've had, let's see, out of all the terror attacks that happened in last year, how many were done by Muslims? 0. How many were done by white right-wingers? All of them. So I think we have a problem with white supremacy. I don't know. It would seem like it, though. But he, again, makes it sound like this particular group of New Zealand Muslims, who I think came over as refugees. I'm not 100% sure on that. But he's saying that, man, it's your fault because of your religion. Oh, that's interesting. So, wait a minute. Now, you guys remember the Catholic versus Protestant conflict that happened in Ireland, right? So, that's like, I don't know, me saying that it's all the Christians' fault for that violence. Really? Do you know the real problems with the Catholics? Well, nobody says that. And nobody should say that. I mean, could you imagine, right? But here we have people blaming all Muslims for the actions of a small group of terrorists. And by the way, if we're going to talk blame here, well, let's look at U.S. foreign policy, right? It turns out the United States has kind of been radicalizing Muslims for decades, and sometimes in a very literal sense. I mean, the U.S., for example, had a program during the 70s and 80s to basically radicalize Muslims, with the help of Saudi Arabia, of course, to the most fundamentalist strain of Islam. That is Salafism, that is Wahhabism, right? These are very fundamentalist strains. Of course, this was going on in both the Middle East and also Afghanistan. Remember, we armed and helped Osama bin Laden. Why? Because we wanted to fight the communists. And so we make friends with radical Muslims, right? And, oh, look, guess what? It blows up in our face later on. Oh, that's weird how that happens. And, of course, radicalizing, again, factions in the Middle East. We're friends with Saudi Arabia, who are some of the most extreme, like extremist Muslims, literally supporting terrorism. And we do it for, of course, cheap oil. So, and not only that, but of course, in the places that we radicalize or the places that we destabilize, we end up taking, launching bombs, launching weapons, taking their oil, and doing endless war, which is what we're doing. Surprisingly, those actions radicalize people who live there. I know. Who would have thought that if you see your family get blown up by bombs for no reason, you might become a little bit radical against the people who, I don't know, dropped those bombs on your family. Weird. But here's the thing, right? Anning blames the entire religion. I mean, no, let's ignore imperialism. Let's ignore fundamentalism. Let's ignore... and again, by the way, fundamentalism is bad in all religions. regional conflicts, online radicalization. No, let's ignore all that. Let's just blame the religion in general. And that's what Anning did. And by the way, this is what he said, quote, "The truth is that Islam is not like any other faith. It is the religious equivalent of fascism, and just because the followers of this savage belief were not the killers in this instance does not make them blameless." I mean, they might have not done anything, but they're still guilty. Oh, they had it coming. Because they're Muslims. Because they have this savage belief system. Whose belief system is more savage? The guy who murders innocent people, or people just wanting to go for a Friday prayer? I believe I know who the savage is. But did you know that the Quran actually teaches the most about fighting poverty? I know it's kind of a strange thing, but most people don't know that because most people don't read it. Or they don't study it. The truth is that the Quran, just like the Torah and the Bible, have good things in it, and then they have bad things in it. Weird. And let me give you an example of some of the bad things, right? They said, if two men are fighting and the wife of one of them comes to rescue her husband from his assailant, and she reaches out and seizes him by his private parts, you shall cut off her hand. Show her no pity. Oh, wow. So if you accidentally grab a guy's junk, as a woman, there goes your hand. Show her no mercy. Show her no mercy. Man, that's horrible. More Quran stuff. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be freed at the end of 6 years as the men are. If she does not please the man who bought her, he may allow her to be bought back again. Oh, those Muslims. I mean, cutting off hands and slavery for women if they're not pleasing their men? Oh, wait, no, wait. It's not Islam. That's actually in the Bible. Oops. The first passage was from Deuteronomy 25, 1, 11. And the second one was 1 Peter 2:18. Weird. Now, look, I'm sure you can find some similar writing in the Quran, perhaps. They are ancient books that are filled with this kind of stuff. So there's bad stuff, and then there's good stuff, right? So my point is, maybe it's not fair to judge an entire religion. Maybe we should judge people as individuals. Like this shooter, terrible individual. Someone like Ilhan Omar, great individual. There are good Christians, there are bad Christians, there are good Muslims, and there are bad Muslims. How about we actually, I don't know, judge them as people, as human beings, based on what they do? So, I'm just saying. Look, I mean, right-wingers, they love to talk about personal responsibility, right? So, but wait, now you want to blame an entire religion for the actions of one person. Weird. Or the actions of a small group of people. And they do that because they're ignorant and they're hateful, but also more so, they are afraid. I mean, fear underpins the entire belief system of the right wing. It's the united factor on the right. And they are so afraid of everything. They're afraid of immigration. I mean, you hear them. They're not going to come replace this. The Jews will not replace this, right? But also they're afraid of the Muslims replacing them. And they're afraid of the minorities replacing them. It's almost as if minorities were treated badly in a lot of instances. I don't know why he'd be so scared of being a minority unless we treated them terribly. I'm just saying, right? So, and of course, the irony here, the big irony, is Muslim fundamentalists are afraid of the same thing. I mean, they're afraid of the same thing as the Christian right. They're afraid of values like inclusiveness, social progress, women's rights, the LGBT community. It appears that they have a lot more in common than they would think. And so, anyway. Now, Anning has been condemned for this. Let's go to Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, who said, the remarks by Senator Fraser Anning blaming the murderous attacks by a violent right-wing extremist terrorist in New Zealand on immigration are disgusting. Those views have no place in Australia, let alone the Australian Parliament. That's a fairly strong statement, and it is accurate. This is right-wing terrorism. It is radical, And I wonder how many politicians in America will have the balls to call it the way it is. I'm waiting. Okay. So, let's take a break. We'll come back. We got AOC versus the NRA over the New Zealand shootings. We then will switch gears and we'll talk about the Green New Deal. Specifically, one Republican representative's beef with it, so to speak. So we'll take a break. We'll come back. Fun times. Read some super chats as well and some member comments. Please like and share the stream if you hadn't already, and we will return around the nation. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Okay, so I've got a couple of super chats that I want to read here. First, Jonathan Scott asks, is there any real reason to give Candace Owens the benefit of the doubt? She didn't pull the trigger, but she helped load the gun. I wasn't exactly sure that I was giving her the benefit of the doubt. I did mention that she has said a lot of very inflammatory anti-Muslim rhetoric. And so I'm not sure where I was giving her the benefit of the doubt. I just thought it was really weird that somebody who was a white supremacist could look up to someone like Candace Owens, who, again, is black. But maybe it's because, I don't know, she's saying the right things, or I'm just not 100% sure where she is on that. And then Platyply says, Anning is a POS. I'm writing a petition to get him stripped of his parliament benefits. My taxes are not going to that horrible bigot piece of trash. And I think that's fantastic that you were doing that. And look, I don't think he represents the people in Queensland. So hopefully that petition will take off and maybe he will end up losing a seat. Because, look, man, at first I thought he was an American politician. You know what I mean? Because that's the stuff that you hear from people like Steve King. I was very surprised to hear it coming from someone who's in Australia. But that's just me. Okay. Now, let's see. I Fart Magic. I just want to read a member comment here. Brought up a good point. What exactly is white culture? There's no such thing. Yeah, but I'm trying to figure that out myself, right? So, like, I guess the argument there is, well, white culture is what we see in America. It's Western civilization. But a lot of us, I think a lot of the people making that argument tend to forget that Western civilization was built by a lot of different people coming together. And in some cases, in a very literal sense, building it on the backs of blacks, African people. So I don't understand what, like, when they refer to white culture and Western civilization, when we know that a lot of different cultures are part of Western civilization. But that's just me. I don't get it. Okay. Anyway. Let's see. There's any more of these. There's a lot of great comments and stuff, but I think I need to get going and do this AOC story before I run out of time. So we'll do that. But thank you for the super chats. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Super chats are a great way to help the show. Another good way, of course, is to join. Either be a channel member or be a Patreon member. So either way, you help the show. Okay. So let's go to AOC. So Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez went after the NRA after the shooting that happened in New Zealand. That shooting, of course, left about 49 people dead. Now, her criticism on Twitter came from this. She said, "At first I thought of saying, imagine being told your house of faith isn't safe anymore. But I couldn't say imagine. Charleston, Pittsburgh, Sutherland Springs. Those are all places, of course, where right-wing white radical terrorists attacked people of color, attacked Muslims." Now, she said, "What good are your thoughts and prayers when they don't even keep the pews safe?" So, look, she's, of course, referring to what the NRA says every time there's a mass shooting in America. Oh, we're sending thoughts and prayers. We're sending thoughts and prayers. Well, thoughts and prayers don't do anything, because we've been having thoughts and prayers for a long time, and we continue to have mass shootings at least every couple months? Probably more. Stuff that we don't even hear about because it's so commonplace now in America. Those thoughts and prayers? Hey, if thoughts and prayers worked so well, then why don't we use thoughts and prayers at the border and stop this emergency? We all know it doesn't work. You know what actually does work, though? In the case of mass shootings? Gun control measures. In fact, New Zealand is looking at doing more gun control measures. But, Jeff, you might say, New Zealand has gun control. They've got stricter gun control than we do. That may be the case, but again, remember, no gun control is 100% effective. So, That doesn't mean, however, that you can't institute measures of gun control. Because, look, this is the first mass shooting in New Zealand since 1985. Literally over 30 years since their last mass shooting. And in reality, of course, this was a coordinated, planned terrorist attack. It's very difficult to foil those kind of things. Whereas, of course, our last mass shooting was like a couple of weeks ago. I don't even know. But our biggest mass shooting, at least that I can recall, was in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas massacre. 59 people were killed and over 500 were injured in that shooting. So I guess that's the most comparable one, and we just had that 2 years ago. And what, their last mass shooting was over 30 years ago, 34, I believe. So their argument of, well, I mean, look, they've got gun control and they still have mass shootings. Well, that's crap. The reason that there are so few mass shootings everywhere else and all these other countries that do have gun control measures is that they do have gun control measures. They have more than we do. So it is less likely to have a mass shooter. So, but here's the other thing, right? So now in the manifesto, this shooter basically said, well, we need to start having a conversation on gun control, because if we do, the left is going to overreach and we're going to tear ourselves apart. Well, and that's the whole point. So, yes, in addition to needing gun control measures here in the United States that are common sense, we also need to have a conversation about white supremacy. So, and that is the bigger issue. The guy was a white supremacist. He hated Muslims. He idolized Donald Trump, wanted to inspire a race war. And so, look, you read through that manifesto, and what's the thing that keeps coming up in between some of the trolling stuff? Well, you have the issue of white genocide. They're coming to replace us. The immigrants are coming. They're crossing the border, and they're making our country less safe. Look, I just committed a mass shooting because it's so unsafe. But, you know, you're the one that's making it unsafe. You're making it unsafe for the Muslims. I mean, look, it's a conspiracy, right, to that. And unfortunately, the right wing talks about this conspiracy all the time. Again, you have got figures on the alt-right and on the alt-light, and you've got, you know, Republicans talking about it. Even Steve King is talking about, well, we need to get those white birth rates up in Europe because they're going to get overrun with Muslims. Candace Owens had a tweet where she's like, French people need to have more babies or else they're going to become a Muslim nation. And you think that's not stoking the fires? It absolutely is. Absolutely is. So the idea that we need to stop immigration from Muslim countries and start having more non-Muslim babies. And of course, what they usually mean by that is white babies. That is racist rhetoric. That is white supremacist rhetoric. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? And of course, the callbacks to what the Muslims are destroying Western civilization. And of course, they get this stuff from people like Jeanine Pirro. Jeanine Pirro went after Ilhan Omar, accusing her of loyalty to Sharia law over America. So don't pretend that we don't have an issue with white supremacy and racism and hatred. We do. And of course, a lot of that is fear, predicated on fear of being replaced or fear of just fear. And in this case, fear of the other, fear of the Muslims, right? And of course, unfortunately, a lot of politicians, a lot of right-wing pundits, they make money off this fear. It's a great way to make money. So you've got a lot of people that are using this fear of Muslims and fear of pretty much everything to make a buck. And it's really sickening because it ends up leading to stuff like this. So, and in the case of the NRA, getting back to them, the NRA, they're backed by the gun manufacturers, right? And so they get a lot of money from the gun manufacturers, and the gun manufacturers get a lot of money from selling guns. More fear equals more guns sold. More guns sold equals more shootings. More shootings equals more fear. And more fear, of course, goes back to buying more guns. And it's a very unvirtuous cycle. And of course, at the end, they make more profit. And that's what this is about. And it's disgusting. And so that's how this kind of all ties in. Now back to AOC. Now, she tweeted also something positive. Gave a lot of praise, of course, to the New Zealand Prime Minister. By the way, it's pretty awesome. But she said, quote, "This is a time of great vulnerability for our communities. We must come together and fight for each other and stand up for our neighbors. Isolation, dehumanizing stereotypes, hysterical conspiracy theories, and hatred ultimately lead to the anarchy of violence. We cannot stand for it." And I agree. We cannot, in the United States, stand for this, or not in the world. We have to stand up to fascism in all of its forms, whether it be white supremacy or Indian supremacy or whatever supremacy, right? And actually learn to get along with each other without dividing ourselves with ridiculous, arbitrary hatred. Because if we don't, in the end, that hatred's going to destroy us. That's the real threat to civilization. Okay. So now let's get to some ridiculous. The Republicans who are afraid of the Green New Deal continue to make up insane arguments in order to destroy its 80% support among voters. And again, the idea of a Green New Deal is incredibly popular. Now, on Thursday, one member of the House Natural Resources Committee made an argument so insane that he ended up having to walk it back just hours later. And it's, of course, not the only insane thing he has ever said about the Green New Deal. Now, what did he say? And who is he? Well, this is Representative Rob Bishop of Utah. And he said this at a news conference. Quote, "For many people who live in the West, but also in rural and urban areas, the ideas behind the Green New Deal are tantamount to genocide." That may be an overstatement, he said, but not by a whole lot. Well, now wait a minute. Wait. Reducing carbon emissions and transferring to 100% renewable energy, that is somehow genocide. How? How is that? It's actually the best shot that we have to save our species from the ravages of climate change. So I think it would be the opposite of genocide. Not only that, but look, what's in the Green New Deal? And I'll give you more specifics here. But the whole plan is to shift to renewable energy and zero emission energy sources, while also restructuring the economy to address income inequality. I don't think there's anything like genocide in there. Now there's more. In his remarks, Bishop argued that the plan had been formulated by people who, quote, "judge distance not in miles but by subway stops," in a reference to Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who lives in New York and happens to take the subway. Unless she's taking a gas-guzzling minivan. Ridiculous, right? But anyway, he said, "The genesis of this concept is really coming from Easterners who live in an urban setting and have no view of what it's like in the rest of America." Now look, if you want to criticize for people living in the big city and not understanding country life, okay, I guess. I mean, it's fair. Rural voters do live in different in a different America than people who live in the city, and you know, I think we can understand that there is a big difference. There's a big difference in values. There's a big difference in how they live their lives, et cetera, right? But at the same time, you can't go and criticize the Green New Deal when you have absolutely no idea what's in it. And he doesn't. Again, calling it genocide, beyond the pale. Now, what's funny is he actually got challenged by a reporter. Now, after the news conference was over, Access reporter Amy Harder, and I got to give her credit for that, pointed out that the term genocide is not what's in the Green New Deal, but also refers to a deliberate mass murder of a particular national or ethnic group, and asked Bishop how the Green New Deal fits that definition. Here's his response. You're going to love this. Quote, I'm an ethnic. I'm a Westerner. What? Oh, no. I'm an ethnic. Anybody who's ethnic has never referred to themselves as an ethnic. I'm just saying. But she continues with her questioning. Quote, and you think the Green New Deal is going to kill you? His response, if you actually implement everything they want to, killing would be positive if you implement everything the Green New Deal actually wants to. And again, this is about helping the environment. Can this guy even name one thing? One thing in the Green New Deal? I don't think he can. I guarantee that he cannot. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to name what's in the Green New Deal, right? Now, I have to inform you that this is not policy yet, right? It's not even a bill called the Green New Deal. This is a set of policy proposals, right? Now, or I should say policy goals. Now, one of those goals is to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions through what they call a fair and just transition for all communities and workers. Okay? The second goal, create millions of good, high-paying jobs and ensure prosperity and economic security for all people of the United States. Okay, so far, no genocide, right? Invest in the infrastructure and industry of the United States to sustainably meet the challenges of the 21st century. And there's two more. Secure for all people of the United States for generations to come, clean air and water, climate and community resiliency, healthy food, access to nature, and a sustainable environment. Again, I'm not seeing any genocide in here. There's more. This has got to be it. Promote justice and equity by stopping current, preventing future, and repairing historic oppression of indigenous peoples, communities of color, migrant communities, deindustrialized communities, depopulated rural communities, the poor, low-income workers, women, the elderly, the unhoused, people with disabilities, and youth. Where's the Western genocide? Where is it? I don't see it in there. I mean, I guess if it were there, I'd be against it, right? But I love how this guy's like, but you don't understand, I'm an ethnic Westerner, and we're in real danger. No, you're not. Shut up. Moron. But look, he's doing what the right wing does because they are scared. And more importantly, the donors are scared. They're scared of not getting money, and the donors are afraid of losing money. So they keep putting out this idea, this false idea that the Green New Deal is going to eliminate all planes, cows, and the military. Not true at all. Not true at all. So now, that said, should we slow down on meat consumption? Probably. And this is a guy who eats a lot of meat, right? I do. But that's got to be your choice, right? And no one's actually trying to take that choice from us. Again, I love a good steak and I love a good hamburger, but I know even I need to cut down on meat consumption because, look, that is a huge driver of global climate change. Now, later on, Bishop did backpedal. He said, oh, no, I'm just joking about the genocide part. But this would be, the Green New Deal, you don't understand, it would be very catastrophic. Quote, my comments were obviously not meant literally and should not detract from the fact that the so-called Green New Deal is born of attitudes that show no respect for the lives and livelihoods of the American people. Now, speaking of the lives and livelihoods of the American people, right? So this guy, again, has been railing against the Green New Deal for quite some time. So again, this isn't the first time that he has done this, and I want to show you a fantastic video of one of the stunts that he pulled before with a hamburger.
In this Green New Deal, want to control my life. Let me go to President Obama's favorite place and realize that if this goes through, this will be outlawed. I can no longer eat this type of thing. So before they take it away from me,
pass it around.
Before it's illegal and an endangered species.
Before it's illegal and an endangered species, he's going to eat that hamburger. He's going to stuff that right into his face. Ridiculous. Now, I love the idea that he, for some reason, I should say, he gets this idea that, like, oh man, if we're not killing cows for meat, they're going to be an endangered species. I don't think you understand quite how that works. You know, wouldn't it be the opposite? I'm just saying. And doing it while literally trying to stuff his face with a hamburger. This is the Republican Party, man. The modern Republican Party, this is how they deal with legislation as bold as the Green New Deal. Or it would be legislation. It isn't yet. But just an idea scares them so much. You're trying to control my lives. As you stuff a burger in your face. No, we're not. Burgers aren't going anywhere. Maybe more sustainable farming. No longer factory farming. You know, that kind of thing. More free range. And yes, reducing meat consumption would be nice. But nobody's taking your goddamn hamburger. So just calm down. It's not going to happen. This is what we deal with on a daily basis whenever we try to do anything to actually benefit the environment. Republicans. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you for going to the nation with me. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Sign up to be a patron. Patrons get, of course, the show ad-free delivered to their Patreon account. So you guys can go watch that. You get full streams of like the show. So if you guys miss it, you can sign up, be a patron. $3 and above gets access to the entire show. So sign up for that, and you can watch, see what you missed. And we're going to be building an archive of shows that you can watch. So and of course that goes to help the show. So thank you guys for watching. Love you guys, and have a great weekend. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.